The encounter. The sun beat down mercilessly on the desolate landscape, baking the cracked earth beneath a hazy orange sky. Nothing stirred except for the occasional gust of wind that kicked up swirls of dust across the barren plains. This was Earth, but not as it had once been. Miles trudged across the wasteland alone, his tanned skin coated with grime. Scavenging was a daily necessity in this harsh new world. The old cities, once thriving metropolises, now lay in ruins, skeletal remains of a forgotten age. Survivor settlements were scattered and well hidden. Trust was a scarce resource. For Miles, solitude was his sole companion. An orphan from birth, he had grown up wild and resilient, learning to fend for himself. He navigated the dangers of this bleak existence with wary eyes and quick wits. But nothing could have prepared him for what came next. A shadow fell across Miles, darkness enveloping him. He looked up, squinting against the sudden contrast, and felt his breath catch in his throat. Something impossibly vast was descending from the sky, blotting out the sun. Miles' mind raced as he tried to comprehend what he was seeing. It looked like a bird. But no bird could be that colossal, that terrifying. As the shape drew closer, details became clearer. It was an eagle, but unlike any eagle Earth had ever known. Its wings were iridescent, shimmering with hues that seemed to defy nature. The creature radiated an aura of power that made the very air tremble. Miles stood frozen, paralyzed by awe and fear. The eagle's dark eyes, deep and fathomless, fixed on him with an intensity that struck him to his core. For a moment, boy and bird regarded each other across an unfathomable divide. Then the eagle struck, fast as lightning. Razor-sharp talons snatched Miles by his tattered shirt, plucking him from the earth with effortless strength. A scream tore from Miles' throat as his feet left the ground. The world spun crazily as he was hauled high into the air, kicking and flailing helplessly. Questions surged through Miles' panicked mind as he dangled from the eagle's grip. Where was it taking him? What did it want? Was he to be food for this alien creature's young? Terror seized him as the ground fell away, his struggles futile against the eagle's might. The landscape blurred beneath him as the eagle carried him into the unknown. Ahead, dark storm clouds gathered, crackling with strange energy. Miles felt the hairs on his arms rise, his skin prickling with electricity. There was something unnatural about that storm, something that filled him with a nameless dread. As the eagle bore him toward the roiling clouds, Miles could only wonder at what nightmare he had been plunged into. Little did he know, his journey had only just begun, and the fate of the earth itself would soon rest in his young hands. With a powerful beat of its wings, the alien eagle plunged into the heart of the storm. Miles' screams swallowed by the howling wind. The black clouds engulfed them. And then they were gone, vanished into a mystery as deep as the cosmos. The Watchers. Miles' world had become a dizzying blur of motion and shadow. The alien eagle's wings beat the air in a steady rhythm as it carried him through the heart of the storm. Lightning flashed, thunder roared, and the wind howled like a living thing. Miles squeezed his eyes shut, his stomach churning with vertigo and fear. Then, as abruptly as it had begun, the chaos ceased. The eagle broke through the clouds into clear skies, and Miles gasped at the sight that greeted him. Ahead lay a city, but not one built by human hands. Towering structures of gleaming metal and pulsing light rose into the sky, their alien architecture defying gravity and reason. It was a metropolis that seemed to breathe and shift before his eyes, a living testament to technology beyond human ken. The eagle descended toward the city's heart, gliding on silent wings. Miles dangled helplessly, his mind awhirl with questions and fears. What was this place? Who, or what, had built it? And why had he been brought here? As if in answer to his unspoken queries, the eagle alighted on a broad platform that seemed to grow organically from the city's center. Miles tumbled from its talons, landing hard on the smooth surface. He scrambled to his feet, heart pounding, and found himself face to face with the impossible. Towering over him were beings that defied description. They were tall and slender, their forms elongated and graceful. Their skin shimmered with iridescence, and their eyes were deep pools of liquid night. They moved with an eerie synchronicity, each gesture precise and purposeful. Miles felt like an insect before them, small and insignificant. One of the beings stepped forward, its movements fluid and mesmerizing. It regarded Miles with an intensity that made his skin crawl. When it spoke, its voice echoed inside his mind, bypassing his ears entirely. "Welcome, Miles of Earth," it said, its tone imperious and ancient. "We have been waiting for you." Miles gaped, his mouth working soundlessly. How did it know his name? How was it speaking inside his head? He found his voice, though it emerged as a croak. "Dully, what are you? What do you want with me?" The being tilted its head, a curiously bird-like gesture. "We are the Watchers," it replied. "We have observed your world for eons, waiting for the sign." "The sign?" Miles repeated, his confusion mounting. "What sign?" The Watcher's eyes bored into him, seeming to pierce his very soul. "The sign of the spark," it said. "The potential for greatness that lies dormant within your species. And you, Miles, carry that spark within you." Miles shook his head, disbelief warring with a strange, creeping sense of destiny. "I don't understand," he said. "What spark? What greatness? I'm just a kid from a ruined world." The Watcher's expression was unreadable, but its mental voice carried a hint of something like sympathy. "You are more than you know," it said. "The spark is a rare gift, one that appears only once in a generation. It grants the power to reshape reality, to alter the course of history itself." Miles felt a chill run down his spine. The power to reshape reality. It was too much, too enormous to comprehend. He looked around at the alien city, at the silent Watchers who stood in eerie stillness. "Why me?" he asked, his voice small. "Why did you bring me here?" The Watcher's reply was heavy with foreboding. "Because your world stands at a crossroads," it said. "A great darkness is coming, a threat that could extinguish humanity's flame forever. But you, Miles, with the spark ignited within you, have the power to stand against that darkness, to lead your people into a new age of hope and light." Miles' mind reeled. A great darkness, a new age. It was like something out of the old stories, the tales of heroes and destinies that he had once scoffed at as childish fantasies. But here, in this impossible place, with these impossible beings, those stories suddenly seemed all too real. The Watcher must have sensed his overwhelming fear and confusion, for its next words were gentler, almost kind. "We know it is a heavy burden," it said, "but you will not face it alone. We will guide you, teach you to harness the power within you. And when the time comes, you will be ready." Miles looked up at the alien eagle that had brought him to this strange new world. Its dark eyes met his, and he saw in them a glimmer of something like understanding. In that moment, Miles felt a flicker of courage kindle in his heart. He didn't know if he was ready for this, didn't know if he could be the hero the Watchers seemed to believe he was, but he knew he had to try. For his world, for his people, for the future that hung in the balance, Miles would face the darkness. With the spark burning bright within him, he would learn to hope again. The spark awakens. In the days that followed, Miles found himself immersed in a world beyond his wildest imaginings. The Watchers, with their eerie grace and ancient wisdom, became his teachers, his guides in this strange new reality. They spoke to him of the spark, of the latent power that lay coiled within him like a sleeping dragon. "The spark is a force of creation," they told him, their voices echoing in his mind. "It is the power to shape reality, to bend the very fabric of the universe to your will. But it is also a heavy responsibility, for the fate of worlds can hinge upon its use." Miles struggled to wrap his mind around these concepts. He had always been a survivor, scraping by on wits and instinct. The idea of wielding cosmic power was both exhilarating and terrifying. But as the Watchers guided him through ancient rituals and mind-bending meditations, he began to feel something stirring within him, a warmth, a tingling that seemed to suffuse his very bones. "You are awakening," the Watchers said, their approval palpable. "The spark is rising within you, responding to your growing awareness." And rise it did. As the days turned to weeks, Miles found himself changing, evolving. His senses sharpened, his reflexes quickened. He could see patterns in the air, hear whispers on the wind. The world around him thrummed with hidden energies, and he slowly learned to reach out and touch them, to channel the spark's power through his own being. But even as Miles grew in strength and understanding, a sense of urgency began to grow among his mentors. The Watchers seemed to be waiting for something, their gazes often turned towards the sky, with a look of grim anticipation. It was the eagle, Miles' erstwhile captor and constant companion, who finally gave voice to the looming threat. "They are coming," it said, its mental voice heavy with foreboding. "The exiles, the lost ones who were cast out long ago. They have sensed the spark's awakening, and they crave its power for themselves." Miles felt a chill run through him. The Watchers had spoken of the exiles before, a faction of their own kind who had turned from the path of wisdom, seeking to dominate rather than guide. Banished eons ago, they had faded into dark memory, but now, it seemed, they had returned. "They will come for you, Miles," the eagle warned. "They will seek to take the spark, to corrupt it for their own ends. You must be ready to face them." And so Miles' training took on a new urgency. He learned to wield the spark as both shield and sword, to weave reality around him like a cloak of living energy. The Watchers taught him the ways of battle, both physical and mental, knowing that he would need every skill and every ounce of courage to face the coming storm. The day of reckoning came sooner than anyone expected. Miles was deep in meditation, his consciousness spread out like a web of shimmering threads, when a klaxon cry shattered his focus. His eyes snapped open to see the Watchers in a state of agitation, their normally serene faces tight with tension. "They are here," the eagle's voice rang out. "The exiles have breached the city's defenses. They are coming for the boy." Miles scrambled to his feet, his heart pounding. He could feel them now, dark presences at the edge of his awareness, pulsing with malevolent hunger. The spark surged within him, responding to the threat, and for a moment he felt almost dizzy with the rush of power. The Watchers moved to confront the invaders, their forms blurring into streaks of light and color. But even as they did, the eagle turned to Miles with an urgent intensity. "You must flee," it said. "The city cannot hold against the exiles' might. We will buy you time, but you must escape, must find a way to master the spark before they can claim it." Miles wanted to protest, to stand and fight beside his mentors. But he knew the eagle was right. He was the key, the one the exiles sought. If he fell, all was lost. With a heavy heart, Miles turned to run, the eagle flying ahead to guide him. Behind them, the sounds of battle erupted, the city shuddering under the onslaught of the exiles' dark power. Tears stung Miles' eyes, but he did not look back. He had to survive, had to find a way to fulfill his destiny. For he was the spark, the hope of a world in darkness. And though the path ahead was shrouded in shadow, he would not falter. The future itself rode on his young shoulders. Escape and destiny. Miles ran, his heart pounding in time with his footsteps, the eagle soaring ahead of him. Behind them, the city of the Watchers was engulfed in chaos, the sounds of battle ringing in their ears. The exiles had come in force, their dark power overwhelming the city's defenses, and now they sought the ultimate prize, the spark that resided within Miles. The eagle guided him through twisting streets and soaring archways, its keen senses alert for any sign of pursuit. Miles followed, his newly awakened powers thrumming beneath his skin like a second heartbeat. He could feel the spark surging within him, responding to his fear and determination, but he didn't yet know how to fully control it. They burst out of the city limits and into the open air. the ground falling away into a dizzying drop. Miles skidded to a halt, gasping, but the eagle merely swooped down, presenting its broad back. "Climb on," it urged. "We must fly, and fly fast." Miles hesitated for only a moment before clambering onto the eagle's back, his hands sinking into the soft, iridescent feathers. No sooner had he settled himself than the eagle leaped into the void, its wings snapping out to catch the wind. Miles clung on for dear life as they soared into the sky, leaving the embattled city behind. As they flew, Miles' mind raced with questions and fears. What would happen to the Watchers, to the city that had become his unlikely home? And what of his own fate, now that the exiles knew of his existence? The eagle, sensing his turmoil, spoke to him in soothing tones. "The Watchers are ancient and wise," it said. "They have weathered many storms, and they will endure this one. Your path, young Miles, lies elsewhere. We must get you to safety, to a place where you can learn to master the spark, to become the hero you were meant to be." Miles swallowed hard, the weight of that destiny settling heavily on his shoulders. Hero. The word seemed too big for him, too grand for a scrawny orphan from a ruined earth. But he couldn't deny the power that thrummed within him, the sense of purpose that had awakened along with the spark. Maybe, just maybe, there was more to him than even he had ever dreamed. They flew for hours, the landscape beneath them shifting from lush jungle to barren desert to craggy mountains. Miles lost all sense of direction, trusting in the eagle's unerring navigation. Finally, as the sun was setting in a blaze of crimson and gold, they descended towards a hidden valley nestled among jagged peaks. "This is Sanctuary," the eagle explained as they alighted on a rocky outcropping, "a secret place protected from prying eyes. Here you will be safe. Here you can learn and grow." Miles slid from the eagle's back, his legs wobbling from the long flight. Before him, carved into the living rock of the mountain, was a doorway sealed with strange symbols that seemed to glow in the fading light. As he approached, the symbols flared brighter, responding to his presence. The eagle nodded in satisfaction. "The sanctuary recognizes the spark within you," it said. "You will be welcome here." Miles placed his hand on the door, marveling at the thrum of power he felt beneath his palm. The symbols flashed once, blindingly bright, and then the door swung open, revealing a passageway that led deep into the mountain. Taking a deep breath, Miles stepped inside. The air was cool and still, tinged with a scent he couldn't quite identify. Something ancient and mysterious, like the dust of ages. Slowly, lights began to flicker on along the walls, illuminating a path that led ever deeper into the heart of the mountain. Miles followed the path, the eagle padding silently beside him. With each step, he could feel the spark within him resonating with this place, as though it recognized it as home. And as he walked, a grim determination settled over him. The exiles were out there, seeking him, hungering for the power he carried. But he would not let them have it. He would learn, he would grow, he would become the guardian his world needed. In the depths of the sanctuary, Miles began his true training, forging himself anew in the crucible of destiny. The road ahead would be long and hard, filled with danger and sacrifice, but he would walk it nonetheless, for he was the spark, the light in the darkness, and he would not fail. A new hope. In the heart of the sanctuary, Miles trained. Day after day, night after night, he pushed himself to the limits of his endurance and beyond. The spark within him grew, its power flowing through his veins like liquid fire. Under the guidance of the ancient texts and mysterious artifacts that filled the sanctuary, he learned to harness that power, to shape it to his will. He learned to call upon the elements, to summon wind and rain, fire and lightning. He learned to weave illusions, to cloud the minds of his enemies, and to shield his own thoughts from prying eyes. And he learned to heal, to mend flesh and bone with a touch, to purge poison and disease from a body with a breath. The eagle watched his progress with eyes that shone with fierce pride. "You are becoming what you were meant to be," it told him. "A champion of your people, a guardian of your world. But even as Miles grew in strength and skill, he couldn't shake the sense of looming danger. The exiles were still out there, still hunting him. He could feel their malice like a chill on the back of his neck, a constant reminder of the threat they posed. And then, one day, they came. Miles felt their presence before he saw them, a cold, creeping dread that filled the air like a foul miasma. He raced to the entrance of the sanctuary, the eagle soaring at his side. And there, on the horizon, he saw them, a host of dark figures, their forms twisted and terrible, their eyes burning with a hungry light. At their head rode a figure that made Miles' blood run cold. It was a watcher, but one utterly unlike the serene, wise beings who had taken Miles in. This one was a thing of shadow and malice, its form cloaked in roiling darkness, its eyes pits of soulless void. Miles knew, with a bone-deep certainty, that this was the leader of the exiles, the architect of their evil. The dark host descended on the sanctuary like a tide of nightmare, their power crashing against the ancient defenses like a wave against a breakwater. Miles stood his ground, the spark surging within him, meeting their assault with a blast of pure, searing light. The battle was joined, and the very earth trembled beneath the clash of cosmic forces. Miles fought as he had never fought before, wielding the spark like a blade of righteous fire. He met the exiles' dark sorceries with bolts of lightning, their malevolent illusions with shields of shimmering force. At his side, the eagle became a streak of brilliant light, its form shifting and flowing like quicksilver as it tore through the enemy ranks. But the exiles were strong, their power fueled by eons of hatred and resentment. For every one that fell to Miles' fury, two more seemed to take its place. Slowly, inexorably, they pushed him back, their dark laughter echoing in his ears. In that moment, as all seemed lost, Miles felt a sudden, startling clarity descend upon him. This, he realized, was what he had been training for. This was his destiny, the purpose for which he had been chosen. Not just to fight the darkness, but to banish it, to be a beacon of hope for a world drowning in shadow. With a roar of defiance, Miles unleashed the full might of the spark. A wave of blinding, incandescent energy burst from him, washing over the battlefield like the light of a newborn sun. The exiles screamed as that light touched them, their forms dissolving like mist before a flame. Their leader, the Dark Watcher, threw up a shield of swirling shadow, but even that could not withstand the onslaught. It shattered like glass, and the creature within was consumed by the brilliant tide. And then it was over. The exiles were gone, banished back to the dark corners of the world, their power broken. Miles stood amidst the aftermath, his chest heaving, his body aglow with the spark's radiance. The eagle landed beside him, its form once again that of flesh and feathers, its eyes shining with triumph. "You have done it," it said, its voice ringing with joy. "You have become what you were meant to be. The spark's true champion, the savior of your world." Miles looked out over the land that stretched before him, the land he had fought so hard to protect. In the distance, he could see the lights of human settlements, tiny pinpricks of warmth in the vast darkness. His people, still fighting, still hoping, even in the face of the apocalypse. "No," he said softly, "not the savior, just a guardian, one among many. The spark may be mine to wield, but the strength, the courage, the hope, that belongs to all of us." He turned to the eagle, a smile on his face. "Come on," he said. "We have work to do." Together, boy and bird took to the sky, soaring towards the dawn of a new age. There would be challenges ahead, Miles knew. The world was still a broken, dangerous place. But now, at least there was hope. Now, there was a chance for a better tomorrow. And he would fight for that chance, with every ounce of his being. For he was the spark, the light in the darkness. And his story was only just beginning.